Hello, everybody. My name's James, and for the benefit of those listening back to the audio, you're listening to Ask James, my regular YouTube live stream, where I welcome questions from the YouTube community on anything football related. To timestamp this, it's just gone past 1 p.m. on Wednesday, February the 25th. As per usual, I'll be answering questions from the YouTube community in order of submission. Repeat / similar questions may well be skipped. Smash a like, hit the sub button. Audio listeners, a 5-star review goes a really long way. Got nothing specific to announce. A little bit of something on content that I'll do towards the end, but let's just get straight into the questions then. I'll cover these up to 2 p.m. UK time. Ben Guy is first. Says 2 free transfers, Palmer and Enzo to 2 of Verts if fit, Semenyo and Harry Wilson. I have enough players to cover game week 31. So I guess as well, if you've already used the wild card, you might be looking at Semenyo as more of a longer term, goes in. I think ultimately if you do purchase Semenyo and you've used the wild card, then there's every chance he's going in for 3 weeks and you will be tempted to move to something else in 31. That answer in 31 could still be Florian Wirtz, by the way. So I think personally, if he's past fit, I prefer that, but he obviously needs to be past fit. Otherwise, yep. I don't have Semenyo, and I wish I did for the next few weeks, but I'm not going to go chasing it. Harry Wilson, as I spoke up on Monday's Game Review podcast, I would really want to go and get if I didn't own. That would be my choice of the midfielders in and around his value. He would be my top choice. So, yep, nothing against that, mate. Verts, if past fit, otherwise Semenyo, fine. FPL Red says, hi James, hope all is well. If you've already used the wild card, would you still wait for double game week 33 or just use it in a single game week if fixtures are okay? Cheers, like and sub all. I presume that somewhere in there, Fred, there was meant to say, or FPL Red, sorry, I presume somewhere in there was meant to say bench boost. If you've already used wildcard, would you still wait for double game week 33 or just use it in single game week? It must be in relation to bench boost, I think, reading between the lines. Apologies if it's not. Depends where you're at. I got a piece, as I said, I'll mention towards the end, that I've got out later today on Patreon, where I'm seriously looking at bench boosting this week, actually. It might have fallen in the right place for me without particularly planning to get here. And I deliberate looking at various paths. I think, as per said on Chip Strategy podcast last week, in most scenarios, if you've used the wild card, I would hold on to it in most cases. But that can definitely go wrong, but it has a big upside as well. I think if you're looking at something that looks exceptionally good, and mine might be a scenario like that this week, where I'm benching with people, bench boosting maybe people like Declan Rice on the bench, then there's every case to say get rid of it. I think if you've used the wild card, there is much stronger case to get rid of it. Much. But I don't think that should be forced. I do think that ultimately you should naturally land quite nicely. I might end up making a number of transfers this week that enables me to do it, but also massively strengthens my team and my squad moving forward, where it shouldn't really need touching. Even if I picked up an injury, it shouldn't need touching for a while again. So I would say for most people who haven't used the wild card, in most scenarios, hold on to it. If people want to get rid of it, get rid of it. If you've used the wild card, I'd be looking to potentially use it, I think. Because there's definitely scenarios where you just got to think that the turnaround from FA Cup quarterfinals to 33 is so close. You've got 2 game weeks. You certainly need transfers in hand to be able to get something stronger. I think the advice I'd give to people who are holding it through is do consider teams that have good fixtures in game week 33 anyway. If you land bench boosting with those single game week players, that's still okay. So we highlight Villa at home to Sunderland, I think. Brentford and Fulham, I think playing each other, it's okay. Newcastle at home to Bournemouth, Crystal Palace at home to West Ham. There's a few you can look at where, if I get stuck, if they don't double, then I've still got good single game week fixtures where I'd be comfortable with it in the same way if I was doing it in a single game week anyway. Ricardo Martinez says, on a scale of 1 to 10, how confident would you feel with this bench boost? People looking at it, aren't they? Looks too good to pass up despite it being a single game week. Dubravka, Hill, Dewsbury Hall and Maguire or Anderson. So Dewsbury Hall away to Newcastle. Dubravka at home to Brentford. James Hill at home to Sunderland. And one of Maguire or Anderson. Both good home fixtures this week. For context, Ricardo, I may end up with something that I think looks quite a fair bit stronger than that. But it's okay. So I think falls in lines with what I've just answered for FPL Red. If you feel particularly confident with that, I don't mind it. I would say what I may end up with has the potential to get past what my general target of 16 would be. Obviously, it can bomb. Of course, it can end up being 6-7 points, which obviously in a double game week, if you got doublers just on appearance points, is far less likely to completely blow out as a nothing. But yeah, I'd consider that. I think that's pretty good. I may have one of those players, possibly. Stavrosano says, hi James, and regards from sunny Cyprus. Is a -4 worth it for Timber to VVD? My other move is to replace Enzo with one of Wilson, Dango, or Iwobi. That is not mentioned at all. What are your thoughts? Yeah, I mentioned Iwobi a little bit on Monday's podcast, but I think it would have to be to supplement and go with Harry Wilson. There would be no reason to pick Iwobi more expensive than Harry Wilson, in my opinion. To answer your original question on Timber to VVD for a -4, strong no from me. I've already done it. I did it on Sunday night for free, but I did it in the luxury position of having 5 free transfers. And truthfully, if I decide not to bench boost this week, I probably won't make another transfer. And under that circumstance, I'd have felt no pressure to get that done. I actually would value Arsenal's probability of a clean sheet this weekend as higher than Liverpool's, in my own personal opinion. So I wouldn't be rushing that through, personally. If you want to do it for free, because I think ideally if you want to invest in Liverpool, the timing feels absolutely right to do so. And naturally with Arsenal blanking in 31, you may end up making that sort of move anyway. But I wouldn't have done it for a -4. Absolutely not. For free, people want to do it, no problem. -4, no from me. Sadashan FPL says, hello James, for 2 free transfers. Got Dango already for Enzo before their price change. If Verts is fit, would you do Rice to Verts this week? Or get Ekateke next week with 2 free transfers by moving Rice to Wilson? So you've gone Dango to Enzo already. If Verts is fit, would you do Rice to Verts this week? Or get Ekateke next week with 2 FTs by moving Rice to Wilson? I think my question on that would be, Sadash, and the information I haven't got there is what forward you're looking to sell. Because on the face of it, if you've got 2 free transfers, Rice to Wilson now and get Ekateke now is, yeah, it's now. Yeah, do that now. I don't know why that would wait a week, personally. You're saying who Fulham are playing. You're saying who Liverpool are playing. Good sides, aren't they? I truthfully, it depends what forward you're selling. You might love your forward this week, but I'd probably be doing that this week, mate, if they're both free. Mr. Trumpet says, hi James, free transfers and wildcard use. It's nice to see people with transfers in the bank, by the way. Free transfer, wildcard use. Timber to O'Reilly. Got VVD already and have 11 playing for blank game week 31. So there's clear and obvious upside in Nico O'Reilly at this moment with where he's playing. I totally get the will and the want. I did this stream last week and actually said that there was a chance that I would sell him this week. I'm obviously not going to do that now. But I'd stressed that I'd been looking at ways to actually move him on. Now, obviously, his positioning has completely changed, and that makes him a potential hauler. Okay? The sort of one that can make a real difference. I tell you what I'd really want to know, and you might not get this before deadline. I was discussing this with Harry Daniels yesterday. I think that Manchester City will probably play their first leg Champions League game on a Tuesday. I think the second leg will be on a Wednesday. I think that's the most likely. It's slightly more likely. But obviously it could be a Wednesday-Tuesday thing. If it's a Wednesday-Tuesday thing, they play West Ham away on the Saturday. Now, if City are to play maybe Real Madrid as well, or maybe even if it's Bodo, then there's a chance, I think, that O'Reilly doesn't start at West Ham. In which case, is it worth investing in any defender if it's Leeds away, outstanding home record? Nottingham Forest at home, likely to be a bit lower probably, and then blank Chelsea away. My general view is on that At the moment, no. I would try and leave that decision quite late, because I do think if City had a Tuesday, Wednesday schedule, it's a little bit better for the West Ham fixture. But I may still be cutting Nico O'Reilly myself in game week 30. Would be a possibility for me, if I generally deemed that there was a strong chance that perhaps he wouldn't start that game. Then with blank afterwards. Now, of course, the flip of that is City could lose to Newcastle and he plays 31 and he'd be in every ideal team for game week 31, probably under that scenario. But even under that, okay, maybe it's a Palace game on a Saturday, maybe it's a Champions League quarter-final first leg on Tuesday. The chances are he's just hauled in 2 consecutive games. Truthfully, the chances are that there won't be another one in the immediate. It's unlikely. For me, if I didn't own him, I wouldn't be buying him. I take on what you say about you feel like you're okay. You've got 11 for 31. But I wouldn't bother, personally. If I didn't own Nico O'Reilly at this moment, I wouldn't buy it. I wouldn't buy him, I don't think, personally. I totally accept that in a circumstance where City then played again in 31 and it changed around, everyone's going to want to go there. So there's an element of gamble. If it's me, I think I'd leave it. I suppose the comparison, I don't own Semenyo, right? As I mentioned earlier, I'd obviously really like to have Semenyo for the next 3 games or so. And with him, truthfully, if he did end up playing in 31, there's every chance I go and buy him in 30. Could be a possibility for me once I've got the information. But I'm not looking to chase after him at the moment. And actually, I could relatively, with the transfers in the bank, I could relatively easily put him in at the moment. I'm not going to. Jack Flash says, what are your memories of Les Ferdinand as a Spurs player? He's the best striker I've ever seen at Newcastle. Yes, better than Shearer. Were you a fan? Tottenham definitely didn't see the best of Les Ferdinand. He came in as a Teddy Sheringham replacement in the summer of 97. And Teddy had obviously been great for Tottenham throughout that period in the 90s. But looked like a kind of ideal replacement, despite being obviously a different profile forward. He started okay. I think I want to say he scored 3 in his first 4 or 5. And then he had really bad injuries that blighted him for the majority of that season. And then a lot of forthcoming season, he just had injury issues. And at that point, he didn't have the explosiveness of pace that you would have seen once he was at Newcastle. Still absolutely brilliant in the air. His touch wasn't as good often as it should have been. But then actually in the 01-02 season, which was significantly after we'd originally got him, he had a run in the autumn and the winter period where we couldn't function without him. A little bit like Tottenham at certain points, saying I don't work well without Solanke. I'm not putting Solanke on Ferdinand's level, by the way. But Tottenham couldn't function without Les Ferdinand. And it became really important. So he had a period there, it took a long time, where he really was playing well, despite being well in his 30s at that point. But he wouldn't go in, if you said like iconic Tottenham forwards, and I've seen a number, he wouldn't go in that list, truthfully, with Lineker's, Sheringham's, Klinsmann's, Defoe's, Keane's of, say, the first 20 years of the Premier League, then Berbatov later. Les Ferdinand wouldn't go in the conversation with those players, but it doesn't mean you don't have every right to feel that way for what you saw at Newcastle. I understand what you're saying. Surprised that you'd rate a forward higher than Alan Shearer, but I accept it. Sean says, hi James, I plan to bring in Harry Wilson, but in 28, due to having Anderson and Anderson at my disposal this week. My question is, who to start and who to bench from Anderson and Anderson? Depends what you think about Fulham v Tottenham. I think there's every chance they're going to give us a hiding. If it's me personally, I'm playing Joachim Anderson. But I guess it depends what you feel about the Fulham-Tottenham match. You'll get negative bias from me, as you'll know. Elliot Anderson, you can expect to hit DEFCONs at Brighton. He's obviously been a little bit more advanced recently, which may be a plus as well. There was a little bit of fear that the DEFCONs might come down, but it looked strong again at the weekend. You know what you get from Elliot Anderson. And maybe there's a little higher chance of attacking returns moving forward as well. If it's me, I'll be playing Joachim. If I was free hitting this week, just thinking about it, he'd probably, after O'Reilly, Van Dijk and Gabriel, it's probably be next in line. Joachim Anderson, I think. Every chance to say that, yeah. Okay, next up is Harade. He says, hello, James. Should I do Enzo to Dango or roll and play Elliot Anderson with 4 at the back? Midfield would be Rice, Bruno Fernandes and Rodgers. That sounds familiar. Thiago, Haaland and Ekiteke up front. That also sounds very familiar. Differences with my team and your team is I've got Harry Wilson as well. So there's less demand on me to do it. In your circumstance, yeah, I think I would. I think so, yeah. Not that there's anything wrong with Elliot Anderson, by the way. Nothing wrong with him playing. I just personally would be keener to get onto that, yeah, because I think it's a player that I'd want to invest in, I think. But to go back to original point, I prefer you to buy Wilson. I mean that. If it's affordable, it might not be. AG says, hi James, what to do with Calafiori? Seems like he lost his place. Is it worth a -4 to go Virgil or just keep playing Chalobah until the blank and deal with him later? Okay, so this is different to the Timber one. Okay, so one of my justifications for selling during Timber now was obviously start of Virgil van Dijk's run and also an awareness that maybe Chelsea Sunday, Brighton Wednesday, maybe doesn't start at Brighton next week. Now, you've got a player there as well who you're going into the game week and you're just not sure week to week when he's going to play. And your alternative, this is what I often ask people, their question is, right, so if you don't do it, who's playing instead? You're saying Chalobah, right, it's got the worst fixture in the game this weekend. And it's not a great fixture afterwards. I would say there's maybe justification in that. However, with Chalobah, you know there's every chance of the DEFCONs. And if I offered you even 3 points right now, for Virgil van Dijk to be worth it, you know he needs to either get an attacking return or hit 2 bonus to make that worthwhile on this game week. But I also accept that now's the time. It's not ideal. I don't like -4s for defenders unless you are really putting in the top offensive assets like Munoz with great fixtures or someone like Gabriel. I think Van Dijk quite falls into that line. Similarly, like O'Reilly, he's just had 2 hauls. Chance of it happening again, don't know. But as said on COTC, he did get the winner in the same fixture last year. I'm just not as high on the... I think West Ham score at the weekend, ultimately. And therefore, I'm liable to say no, that it's probably not worth it in one. But is this something that ends up happening anyway? You're definitely going to want to get rid of Calafiori. If going Virgil van Dijk this week, it enables you another transfer on your path towards 31 or beyond. That's quite important. I think we overlook that. Okay, it's a -4 cost. Does he make it up? Maybe not. But it also gives you an additional transfer on your path rather than if you just use it for free next week, you need another -4 to gain 1 back. So I think it's close. I think all in, I'd probably just about nudge towards doing it, but it's close. Dag Stenhag says, good day, James. I have near perfect front 8 this week. Need to bench one of Wilson, Rice, Dango, Fernandes, Rodgers, Ekiteke, Thiago, or Haaland. Again, this looks familiar. You might be getting the idea why I'm considering something this week. For me, with big reluctance, Declan Rice. I just think the others, all of them, have more likelihood with their fixtures to go off. So it's a fixture decision. So with big reluctance, I'm going to say Declan Rice. As I said a little while ago, I might end up bench boosting with Declan Rice on the bench this week. Jack Lorien says, best midfielder under 7 million. Under 7. I'm inclined to say for this immediate period, Harry Wilson still. Yeah, I think so. Looked decent at the weekend. DEFCON assist. Amazing fixtures coming up. Absolutely amazing. Would be in everyone's ideal team for game week 31 as well. Not beyond possibility of a double in 33 as well. They've obviously got a good fixture in the FA Cup against Southampton, although they had a fantastic result last night against Queen's Park Rangers. But yeah, for me, Harry Wilson, I think. Murphy says, hi James, I've been at 750k for most of the year and aiming for top 100k. Should I start looking at differential captains and transfers, or should I wait till after 32, 33, 34 to see how it lands? So you're saying wildcard 32, bench boost 33, free hit 34. So look, let's take a scenario this week. Haaland will be most popular again. It's away to Leeds. I think that means there is reason to consider taking him on. Okay, Leeds have been really good at home. I think we feel more comfortable taking Haaland on away games and home games. For example, Nottingham Forest at home 29. Don't really want to have the argument. West Ham away in 30. Again, subject to the placement of City's Champions League fixtures. There might be another conversation to have. Liverpool, for example, have really good home fixtures both this week and in game week 30. But do you have the confidence in Ekitike or Wirtz at this point? Or Salah? There's alternatives. Bruno Fernandes this week. But I don't think there are a huge number of alternatives. It's one thing me sitting here and saying, I think Harry Wilson's a great option. I don't know if I'm going to stick the armband on him. So this week, as an example, the only player that I'd probably feel truly comfortable taking him on with is Bruno Fernandes. And I'm not sure as I'm convinced about that, particularly when you see how Bruno Fernandes' DEFCONs have dived over the most recent games, right? So for me, I don't have enough reason. But I'm also not sitting in your position wanting to make jumps. What I would also say, though, at this point is Haaland only got an assist at the weekend and with a bonus point, 6 points. So for me, it was 12 as captaincy. It made a difference. His EO was sort of like 140%-ish where I am. It made a difference. It did impact like just a normal differential captain. And I'd bear that in mind at the moment. So I think it's what I often say about like picking your battles and picking your timing, right? Game week 31. Is Bruno Fernandes going to be the most popular captaincy away to Bournemouth? Probably is. It's been well documented. Bournemouth's underlying in home games is actually pretty good. Now, there's a prime week where you could maybe look, Wilson against Burnley or Anthony Gordon at home to Sunderland, or it's a Liverpool player at Brighton, or it's Cole Palmer or João Pedro away to Everton. Maybe it's Morgan Rogers or an Ollie Watkins at home to West Ham. That one, if you want to go against the EO, I'd say that week is great, right? So don't define as before and after 32 so much. It's a case of picking your battles. Ultimately, do you have a player that you think scores more points than Erling Haaland this week? If the answer is yes, captain them. If the answer is no, then don't. Andrew Mackay this afternoon, James went early with Chalobah to Hill. Looking at either Enzo, Rice, Gu to Wilson, Dango, Ekitike, or solely Enzo to Wirtz. Do you think using all threes is too aggressive before the blank? No. No, I don't. One of the, say more recent midweek dilemmas, that would be not correct. In early January, I did a midweek dilemma on Patreon. And I defined then that I felt that the even game weeks were the weeks to attack. So 24, there was swings like Chelsea's. There was a bit more again in 26. And there's clear swings for a number of teams in 28. And also, for example, if you've invested heavily in Chelsea, then Chelsea obviously now coming into a poorer run of fixtures, right? You want to go aggressive now, do it. I'm looking at a scenario where I might end up making 4 free transfers this week. There's every chance I don't need to touch that again for a while if I decide to take that route. So you want to be aggressive now. You're buying, in my opinion, 3 extremely good assets heading towards game week 31 that you ain't going to move unless they get injured. Now the others, Enzo, fixtures, underwhelmed last couple, unfortunately. Rice, the potential blank. Go, useless. Yeah, it's fine. It's probably more twist the question back on yourself, Andrew, to just answer for yourself and think about, like, why not? Just through fear of being too aggressive at the moment? If you've got the transfers in hand and they're all free and it sets your team up in a much better way, you're putting 3 regular starters in your team in place of 2. Because Goo's useless to you, right? So your squad depth, by consequence of these 3 transfers, must be better. Has to be, surely. So even if you did pick up an injury, maybe you're in a better position to deal with it. So yeah, I'd largely be on board with doing it. I wouldn't look at, I've got to move on Declan Rice. But I don't know what other Arsenal City players you've got. Again, it might really help you on your path. So I don't have a problem with it, mate. James Brennan says, hi, James. Would you do a -4 to go Palmer and Rice to Salah and Alex Scott? Cheers, mate. No. I'll be very honest. Look, as discussed with Dan on Clash to Correspondence, those fixtures enable the possibility for Mo Salah as a very lone player to suddenly go off. But that also applies to Ekiteke, Verts, and others within the same team even. I just don't think that he's worth that money at this moment, personally. Now, if you're going, well, I'm a justify because I'm going to captain Mo Salah for the next 4 game weeks, and that's what you want to do, be my guest. And obviously, outcome could be absolutely great, but I just don't deem him worthwhile. In terms of the enabling player, by the way, I don't know what your chip strategy is, but I'd prefer Anton Stack to Alex Scott, personally. But no, I wouldn't be doing that. I think in all seriousness, James, I wouldn't do those transfers for free. I'd just be looking at it and going, right, I'm going to downgrade here from Palmer. Where am I going? Where am I going? And you've got your choice of all those enabling mids. Florian Wirtz, obviously, if he's available, is also going to appeal, right? Even if you went Florian Wirtz as an example, right? You don't need your other transfer to be Alex Scott, does it? It could be Harry Wilson. Something like that's much stronger. Jumpers for goalposts this afternoon. James, hello. Hope you're well. Cam says, afternoon, James. Does the Wirtz injury kill my plan to bring him in for Rice? Or shall I still do it if we get a positive update? If you get a positive update and that's the move you want to make, I totally accept that it feels like the right week to attack Liverpool. It doesn't mean you've missed it if you go next week, for example. But if your plan was to buy Florian Wirtz, if Arne Slot gives you a positive update, why wouldn't you? That's what you're hoping for. You know, if Arne Slot says, well, we need to check him in training later or something like that, then it's off, isn't it? Frankly. But if he gives a positive update and it's, he's trained fully since Tuesday or something like that, right, well, crack on, innit? If that was the plan. Donny FPL says, smash a like, peeps. What's your preferred move with 1 free transfer? Timber to VVD or Rice to Wirtz? Once confirmed he's okay, I also have Palmer. Cheers, mate. It's the VVD move, personally, for me. That's the one I obviously went with. Not that I could have gone Rice to Wirtz in one move, but it's preference for that. Part with what I said in mind about Timber and maybe game week 29 has a kind of a little bit of an influence on that as well. And also Declan Rice. Don't worry about the fixtures so much. Consistent animal. Alex Andrealescu says, hi James, I have 2 free transfers. I'm mostly focusing on my mini league. What you say? Timber and Rice to Semenyo and Van Dijk. People from my mini league also have Semenyo, or Dean and Rice to VDJ and Rayan. VDJ Vanden Jurg. I don't think, if it's meant to be Vandenberg, I don't think you can buy at this moment. If it's meant to be Van der Ven, don't do that. Rayan, fine, if that's the player you want. What I don't know is whether you're focusing on protecting rank, Alex, or if you're trying to chase rank. If you're looking to protect, then I totally understand the Semenyo investment. I think Luca Dean is kind of a walking problem in the sense of not knowing from game to game if he or Maatsen will play. I think Maatsen's ahead of him, but that scenario can change about quite a bit once the Europa League restarts, which obviously happens really soon. So, Timber and Rice to Semenyo and Van Dijk, it's fine. Just bear in mind, obviously, a 31 problem, but along your path here, you're reducing 1 player from your potential blankers. And who knows, you might get lucky with City playing 31. So, I'll say yes to that. Uros Milicevic says, hi James, I have 3 free transfers, 2.1 million in the bank. I plan to wildcard in 32. Which players should I sell first? João Pedro, Rice, Enzo, Timber, Lacroix, King, and Mark Go. Who would you suggest I replace them with? So, I'll assume that you want to find some money here. I think, excuse me, timing-wise, you could make the case certainly to sell Chelsea assets now, but they also may be very useful for you across game week 30, 31. Again, the spacing around their Champions League fixtures might be quite important for that. Wouldn't be in a rush to get rid of Rice, Timber. Maxence Lacroix has good games in 29 and 30, I would suggest. King and Mark Gu are a little bit useless for you, but you want to find some money, right? So, how are you going to get Mark Gu up to, say, at least Dominic Calvert-Lewin maybe next week? I think that would be quite a good move. That's probably your close in terms of money. So, could you go something like Enzo Fernandez to Harry Wilson, Rayan Utara this week, and then Mark Goods, Dominic Calvert-Lewin next week. Also, could you jump up King to Stack, for example? That's not a huge difference in terms of money. Lacroix probably can wait till 31 to bin. We should get an Oliver Glasner update today on his fitness. Original suggestion was that he may be back for the game tomorrow night. Timber, Enzo, I wouldn't run away from unless it is funding money moves for someone else. But I think that will give you a decent idea, mate. AP UK says best captain this week and top 3 plays. I think probably at this moment in time, something like Haaland, Fernandes, Salah, that route. But easy to say Haaland, Fernandes, Ekitike, to be honest. I think it's probably that as a top 3 for captaincy this week. FPL Glasto says, hello, mate. Hope you're well. Thoughts on Pedro to Ekitike, classic form versus fixtures? Look, you're asking a fixture guy. I'd be making that move all day long. I regret not investing in João Pedro. I said that on Monday's pod. There was fear that was it going to be worth the 2 transfers, because I would have been selling him at this point. Probably for me would have been back to Thiago. Obviously the difference in the 2 players over the 4 weeks, well worth it, obviously, in hindsight. Lesson learned. Doesn't mean I'd do the same thing again next year. Yeah, I'll personally, I would make the move, mate. Sean McGing says, hi, James. Hope all is well. I have Timber, Gabriel O'Reilly, and Gay. Was wondering if selling Timber for VDV would be a decent move. Would mean 4 at the back and benching Enzo. Yeah, I mean, that's fine. Obviously, benching Enzo this week. I mean, currently I have him bust on the bench for myself. That wouldn't be part of a bench boost, by the way. If I bench boost, he's going. I would say yes, I like that. The other factor here is as well, try and leave yourself for 29. Gay and O'Reilly, obviously good home fixtures, so you don't want to deal with either of them there. Then 30, you have some information. So under a circumstance, let's say City lost to Newcastle, the Palace game's rearranged for 31. You're like, oh, I'm keeping these guys now. Like, yeah, exactly that. So yeah, I'll deal with Timber first and foremost. Atlas Forland says, hello, would you go Enzo and Richard, I presume it's meant to be Richards, to Hill and Semenyo / Dango for a bench boost, have an extra transfer to navigate the blank? Look, I can't see the rest of your team. I don't know if you have risk players in there, you know, something like, oh, I've got Ryan Shirky, risk player, as an example. But most players obviously won't have played this midweek, so it shouldn't be too much concern with selections this week. I think early substitutions might be more of a thing this week, possibly. Yeah, I don't have a huge issue with that. It's so difficult for me to answer because I can't see the rest of your team. But I mean, on the face of it, putting Hill and Semenyo in, yeah, it's fine. If you want to get rid of it, and that helps, and Semenyo's good for the next 3, Hill will carry you for the next 4. It's fine. Jay Pazizu says, who should I sell first to VVD out of Chalobah, Timbo, and free transfers? For me, Chalobah, fixtures. But I don't know how tight you are for transfers, right? So if I'm sitting there and I'm very tight at transfers, I'm like, well, if I'm going to have to lose Timber and it's another transfer. Whereas if you keep Chalobah, maybe it's useful for you in 30, 31, then I'd do it the other way around. Liam says, hey, James, bench one of Chow, Joachim Anderson and Munoz. I think Malik Chow, nothing could ever possibly go wrong with benching Malik Chow against Everton like it did once already this season and like it might do for a second time this season. But that's my answer. Daniel George says, Wilson or Dango? I have Thiago already. Preference, as I said, is Harry Wilson. Cole Sliffer says, hi, James. Do you think this season has given you a better appreciation of what it's like to support a bottom half Premier League club? No. Not particularly. I've got a piece I'm doing on what the numbers say tomorrow about relegation fights historically. And I've experienced them, mate. I supported Tottenham in the 90s, mate. You know how many times Tottenham finished in the top half in the 90s? Yeah, I have an appreciation of what it's like to support something that's shit, mate. I've got the T-shirt, mate. Neil Craig says, afternoon, James. I hope you're well. Thoughts, please, on how Thiago ranks amongst the other midfielders on consideration this week. How Thiago ranks amongst the other midfielders. Okay, I understand. I'm selling Palmer to Wilson and can upgrade Gu or Miley. Thanks. Well, Thiago would be above. So if you're saying you're buying Wilson anyway, if you ask me Thiago over Utara or Rayan, if that's where you're lacing the question, then yeah, Thiago, particularly in your scenario there. Miley might be useful, yeah. Mark Gu's not going to be. JP Zizou says best differentials to buy at each position until the blank game week. Until, I'll assume you mean including. So, I mean, these midfielders that are attracting a lot of attention, the Wilsons, Rayans, Utaras, Shardays, even Verts, Shaboshlai, they're all differentials, mate. All of them, basically. All of them. So I don't need to move too far from that. Forwards, differentials. I mean, if you were wildcarding now, Ekateke, Thiago, Haaland would be kind of like your template front three, I suppose. It's difficult to name other forwards. I'll throw Dominic Calvert-Lewin's name in. City at home this week, and then the fixtures are really good afterwards. So I'll throw DCL into there as a possibility. I think Jimenez Muniz is. I know Jimenez did great at the weekend, but as kind of discussed with Suj on Monday, there has to be a chance of either early substitutions again, or maybe Muniz starts against West Ham in game week 29. Excuse me. Unfortunately, I think that's avoidable. Krupi and Evan Nilsson. I think if you're on Krupi, like, it's okay. I wouldn't run to that at the moment. Another midfielder name to throw into the hat is Anthony Gordon. Obviously, great Champions League form, less so in the Premier League. But his 3 of the next 4 at home. That would look nice for 31. Anton Stack, I've mentioned as an enabling option. Defenders, Villa on the right rotation could work quite nicely. Otherwise, yeah, it's back into Joachim Anderson's, a risk element at Brentford, Ibrahim Kanate, James Hill. There you guys. Sorry, it's the obvious teams. Jumpers for goalposts this afternoon, James. Game week 28, bench defense dilemma. Sorry, so starting Gabriel and VVD, but which one would you play out of Chow, Anderson, or Hill? All playing at home, need to bench 2. I'd be playing Anderson first and foremost. And yeah, I'd like to know what the rest of your bench is. NMSWFC. Is that my friend Nathan? Who else says, hey up, James. I may find myself with a bench of Verbruggen, Anderson, Garner, and Alderete next week. Would this be bench boostable? Asked this week, as it's something I can build towards now. So James Garner at home to Burnley. I think with him, he's been so consistent with Defcon's absolutely brilliant. The fixture's less relevant. And actually, that's a fixture where he would be less likely to pick it up, but you have the advantage of an additional point maybe for clean sheet and obviously potential bonus and attacking returns and stuff. Alderete away to Leeds, meh. Anderson at home to West Ham, I don't believe is as good as Anderson at home to Tottenham this week. Verbruggen's playing Arsenal. So I'm assuming when you said next week, you meant 29. Because I would personally probably be of the opinion that looks better this week. But you think you're saying you're building towards it next week. It would be a no from me, I think. Daniel George says, Wilson or Dango, I've done. Brian Burton says, play 1 this weekend from Gay, Dallo, and Timber. I currently have Saar in my bus team. Comfortably Timber for me, personally. Comfortably. Mainly Mini Maldub says, is it worth using the transfer to upgrade his Stev for game week 31? Thanks. Well, I would say, for example, if you went something like Goodmanson next week ahead of 29, he might be useful for you 29-30, and depending on your chip strategy moving forward, if you've used a wild card, it'd be way more useful for you for the rest of the season. And therefore, I'd probably say yes. So the answer is probably yes. My friend Oni Dozier says, hi James, I've noticed there are several good managers from the Basque region of Spain: Andoni Iraola, Mikel Arteta, Xabi Alonso, Julian Lopetegui, just to name a few. Is there something in the water? I mean, there must be for Athletic Bilbao to maintain such a level of consistency in a world full of money, right? So, yeah, there probably is. I'd suggest, I suppose, we don't associate it as a bit of a, let's say, a hotbed for football, but I suppose it is, isn't it? Dane Oz says, hi James, who would you sell to bring in Harry Wilson this week? Enzo Fernandez or Enzo Lafay? Thanks. That's interesting. Again, chip strategy dependent. So if wildcard used, actually, I'd probably be more case to sell Enzo Fernandez, actually. Because I think Sunderland long term is fine, and he probably does sit there as kind of an 8th attacker. Enzo Fernandez probably not so much that. If you're shorter term, then there's maybe the case to say that Enzo Fernandez is more useful for you, like in 31, for example. So it's a little bit strategy dependent, I think, on that. Under my circumstances of having not wildcarded yet, I'd probably sell Enzo Lafay, I think, from the 2. Interesting question, that. Dag Stenhug says, hi again, James. You reckon Collins starts against Burnley? Brentford did not look good against Brighton, and Hickey went off with an injury, considering bench boost. Yeah, can't. Yeah, he came on because Hickey went off injured, but we know that Michael Kyoto missed out with a minor problem. So if Michael Kyoto comes back in, there's nothing to say it's not Vandenberg and Ager again, right? I just think at the moment you need more information. Brentford, I personally would not be bench boosting with that. Valentine says, hi James, how valuable are transfers in game week 31 if you've got wildcard, free hit, and bench boost? Still very much so, right? So again, to repeat, the situation of projections for 32 could move, for 33 could move massively ahead of game week 32, right? That's a potential thing. So, I think it's going to be Arsenal, City, Liverpool, Chelsea, all going to be FA Cup semi-finalists. They'll double. It might change quite a bit where, who knows, the Championship side gets to the semi. Maybe Arsenal, Newcastle both make it. Maybe we're suddenly only looking at 2 doubles and you really need to concentrate your efforts and transfers towards those 2 teams. Or alternatively, you might have the shit show scenario, which I cover on the midweek dilemma again today with proper visuals to show just how bad it would be. That you have a scenario where Chelsea, Man City, Leeds and Fulham are the FA Cup semi-finalists, and oh my god, you'll want transfers in game week 33, probably 5 of them, and it kills the game week 32 wildcard at the same time, because you are not wildcarding into that. I showed the example of what the wildcard would look like, and had said on the Chip Strategy podcast, he wouldn't be doing it, and it's not that far of a far-fetched thing, right? That said, it goes the other way, and you have four different, not even 4 different teams, just a couple of little changes in terms of the doubles, where it's like Fulham and Brentford double on your path. And you're like, well, I'm investing in them now. They've got great fixtures. Well, you'll need it probably a little bit less. So the outcome's important, but you don't know what the outcome's going to be. Therefore, the more you have, the more flexibility. Also, what's your worst case scenario here, right? So you get to game week 32 wildcard. You've got 4 free transfers, let's say, in the bank. You wildcard, you're like, I'm happy with this. A set for bench boost. I'm going to free hit 34. I'm a bench boost 33. This is great. I've got all these transfers left. Yeah, I am telling you, you're going to want some different players between 35 and 38 to what you end up going with in 33. So, again, another mini wildcard. Right, 35. I've got 5 free transfers. Bang, 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 bang. Make some changes. Attack. There is no way that those transfers won't be useful for you at some point if you end up holding them. And they could, by the way, be very, very useful even for the period you're talking about. On the Chip Strategy podcast, I couldn't have been clearer about this. Be very prepared for your strategy to change. You can look there for all the world like I have and go, I'm going to wildcard 32, I'm going to bench boost 33, I'm going to free hit 34. Optimum strategy. A lot of people looking at it. I'm telling you, if it's City, Chelsea, Fulham, Leeds as the FA Cup semi-finalists, you're going to want to change strategy. You're not going to want a wildcard in game with 32. You are going to wildcard into a team that is significantly worse than what you would probably already have. Strategy will change under that sort of circumstance. Now, for those going, panic. Like I just said, there's another scenario. We're just putting Brentford back in there for those investing in them. Like, this is quite easy, no problem. We've still got Arsenal, we've still got Liverpool, we're still doubling, etc. And it might set up really nicely. It can definitely do that as well. Transfers be useful. Don't use for the sake of using them. That's the best advice I can give you. But if you need players for game week 31 to cover a blank, yeah, of course. But you can be smart about it. Think of it like this. Ahead of game week 30, you'll now know the FA Cup quarterfinal lineup. at that point, we can be really serious with our projections. Now, the projections haven't changed, actually, since we first did the Chip Strategy podcast at the start of January. It's not changed, actually. But it might after the FA Cup 5th round. Or if it doesn't, we can be more confident about the path that we're heading towards. You've got more information. So let me give you an example, right? Where you don't own any Chelsea players, and Arsenal and Chelsea get the Arsenal-Aston Villa fixtures out of the way. Chelsea beat Wrexham. They've got an FA Cup quarter-final at home to Southampton. You now can feel very confident that they're going to play in 33. So you go, well, actually, I'm now sitting with Newcastle at home, Everton away. All right, Man City, it's at home, and the possible double 33. And now you start thinking, well, actually, along my path here, I've got this player's gone out the competition. Oh, now I want to get up to Parma. I actually want to do this. Or I want to get João Pedro. Or I want to go back for Chalobah. Enzo Fernandez, whatever. Casado is like this is going to be my 8th attacker. I'll have Casado in a double game week because surely he's going to get me like 7 points minimum or something. Yeah, every chance. So, yeah, there'll be things once you hit 30, things will look clearer, and you can invest in players that will play in 31 that might also carry you on a path as well, maybe without even using the wild card. Angelica says, hey James, I have Rice, Wilson, Rogers, Bruno Fernandes and Enzo, I presume Fernandes. Who should I get for Enzo? 0.8 in the bank, free transfers. Also, who do you lean towards, Dango, Sade or Szoboszlai? Dango for me from them. I just don't think we can be certain that Kevin Sade starts, and I just don't like that from week to week. I don't know where Szoboszlai is going to play. So Dango for me from them. Simon Baker says, hey James, Rayan and VVD or Gordon and Hill? Rayan and VVD for me from that, mate. I must have a username, says, I've already sold Gabriel, wow, to Virgil van Dijk, João Pedro to Thiago. Keep Timber a few more weeks. Selling Timber to VVD would not give me the cash for Thiago. Pain or okay? Okay, yeah, it's fine. I mean, we've done it anyway. I say reverse your transfers. It never does anyone any good. But yeah, you're okay, mate. Juki says, who do you think will be the most popular mids will be from 31 onwards, assuming all chips still left to play? It's a really difficult question to answer because under a circumstance where the projections remain the same, then we've got a scenario here where people are highly likely, in most scenarios, dead end 31, wildcard in 32, to bench boost 33, to free hit 34, to then attack different players in 35. Now, you might go, but James, I'm chipless. Okay, fine. So, I think you're almost breaking it into certain sections. So, I'll give you an example. Liverpool, great fixtures up to game week 34, running not quite so good. Arsenal, Man City, right, depends how it falls with the fixtures. Brilliant run-ins. Okay. Leeds, really good fixtures from 31 onwards, or so 29 onwards, really. Am I going to put Anton Stack in that? So I don't think there's like a kind of a one player fits all for everything. I said on the Chip Strategy podcast, we went through kind of like best teams for like the remainder of the season, or what would be ideal in terms of those who want a wild card in 32. And we said on then that I could put teams in a ticker order for you, right? But everybody from 32 onwards has a good home fixture. Every single team has a good home fixture. Now, you're mentioning specifically midfielders, right? So I would say, listen, I'll tell you on my ticker, on my planner, from now till the rest of the season, top team on my ticker is Leeds. You're not going to go and buy Aronson. I know he had a good little bit of form. Stack, fine. 7th, 8th choice attacker, it's fine. Fulham. Okay. Harry Wilson. But within that, once you hit past the next 4, you might be looking at a scenario where it's Liverpool away, Brentford away, Villa at home, Arsenal away. Just a single fixtures. You mean, well, that's no interest to me. Yeah, quite right. Guess what? He's got brilliant last 3 fixtures as well. Liverpool. Verts, Salah, Szoboszlai, Gakpo, maybe. Villa, Morgan Rogers, good fixtures. City, Semenyo. Sunderland, Enzo Lefebvre. Brighton, don't really want any of it. Wolves don't want any of it. Brentford, Utara, Sade, maybe. But it changes. It changes, right? Once you get to certain stages of the season, it changes, right? So based on current projections, this is an interesting point for you. So based on the current projections, game week 34 to 38. Top teams on my ticker, right? Wolves, Leeds again. Everton, despite playing Manchester City in game week 35, 4 other really good fixtures, I think, in the running. So maybe like Illiman and Dye wouldn't be a consideration now, perhaps. Sunderland, good at the end. Arsenal is good, and that might even be despite having a fixture less. Manchester United, didn't mention Manchester United the first time, so it might be running. You go, I want Bumo, Cunha and Bruno Fernandes. Bournemouth comes back around again, decent running. That's despite playing Man City in 37. Fulham, as said, last 3 fixtures, comes back around. It changes. And you would rather be making your transfers, I think, in the midfield area than many other positions within your squad at the moment, right? Strikers, don't piss about them so much. What have we learnt this year? Thiago scored like 9 more goals than Jared Bowen, and there's not a lot between them, right? Actually, your horse, I know I didn't go Thiago to João Pedro, but quite often, just sticking with a horse has been the right thing to do in many cases this year. Similar defensively, it's nearly always the case with goalkeepers. And midfielders will be the area to want to make the most transfers, I think. If you said, I've got no chips left, I want to go to the end of the season, I'd say that's the area of your team you most want to make the most transfers. So I wouldn't look at any midfielder right now and go, that's definitive for the rest of the season. Plus, if you do have any chips left, it's strategy dependent. Or even if you don't, I got this player doubling. Say Liverpool double 33 and then Liverpool blank 34 and then have not great fixtures for the rest of the season. And go, well, I'm going to move Verts now in 34 to something else. Yeah, maybe at that point it's like Verts to Bumo, for example. So try not to define it as the whole season, mate. Ben Guy says, can week 28 this week be better than game week 32? The most common strategy and to also differentiate to others. Yeah, of course it could be, mate. But you know what you don't have at the moment, right? Information. So if you're wildcarding now to like set to bench boost 33, good luck. It might work out great, but it might not. So, i.e., are there teams to attack now? I think if you've got the wildcard left, if you don't use it this week, you're not using it till 32. I think would probably be fair in most scenarios. You'd use it now, right? Because it's the same teams you want to attack in 29. So you'd use it now. Okay, attack into these teams. That's fine. But you don't know what the layout is for the doubles and the blanks. So could it be? Yes. Might not it be? Also, yes. Rick FPL fan says, hi James, Enzo to Verts, if fit, or Evan Nilsson to Thiago, or both transfers for a hit. Evan Nilsson, yeah. But it wouldn't be worth a hit, mate. Nah, and what if he suddenly hit a bit of form? If they're wasted, I mean, do have good fixtures, don't they? So no, I couldn't justify that. Enzo to Verts, if fit's fine. I get you want Thiago. Would I do it for a hit? No. Nah, and they play each other in 29 as well. Then 30, they've both got good fixtures. No, I don't think I'd do it for a hit. But yeah, I don't think Evan Nilsson's a great asset. I'll add that in. D. Dot says, hi James, 4-3 transfers, wildcard used, rank 40k. Enzo, Chalobah, Pedro to Wilson, Hill, Ekiteke. There's a chance these transfers all open up a bench boost 28. Good luck. Not in a bad, mate. Not in a bad. Alex Curry says, been stuck around 2 million rank all season. Chances of getting top 100k. 3 transfers this week, and I'm not sure how differential I want to go. Like I said earlier, a lot of the players that are getting interest, trust me, you're gonna the game week's going to start and you're going, well, is EO still lower than I thought? Remember, we're in a gauged world. Okay. So I still think you can follow the popular transfers that others are making, and you might still find there's quite a bit to differentiate there, mate. Kabir Khalid Cad says, Chalobah to VVD, Enzo to Dango for 2-3 transfers. Shall I take a -4 to get Ekiteke or Thiago for Bowen? With that one, the difference between that and it's interesting. Bowen's a better asset than Evan Nilsson, generally speaking. Bowen has consistency, can hit DEFCON, stuff like that. But you do look at the 4 fixtures, I think if I go Thiago or Ekiteke, they should outscore him over those 4. And that would very much tempt me. particularly if you are committed to 32. If you're committed to carrying on, i.e. you've used the wild card or you've got no chips or something like that, I'd be more inclined maybe to hold on to Bowen. But I think, yeah, that one I would probably be just about justifiable. And this is the week to do it. Stannard says, hello, mate. Stuck between Munoz to VVD this week or Pedro to Thiago. Munoz is more of an issue in my team, but scared of everyone owning Thiago. So we're scared of the Brentford forward that hasn't scored for, 5-6 game weeks? Just putting it out there. Listen, I own him. If I didn't own him, I'd want to get him myself. And truthfully, from a fixtures play, again, I'm a fixtures guy. So, yeah, I would be making the Pedro to Thiago move. Because I'd know that Munoz, actually, for the next 3 weeks, he's still okay. You could play him at United away. The 2 fixtures afterwards are good. And at any point, you can catch up with that transfer. Simon Baker says, James, picture the scene. It's 5:50 on the 24th of May and Spurs win an injury time penalty. You need to score to avoid relegation. You can sub on any Premier League player from any club to take the kick. Who are you picking? Me. I want it to be my responsibility rather than someone else. Picking any Premier League player in that pressure moment. Jeez. To be honest with you, I know he's missed a few. I am drawn to Bruno Fernandes. Actually, I'm drawn to it. That said, Salah in that moment would know that Jordan Pickford is a very good potential penalty stopper, and Salah would not piss about. He would pick his side and hit it as hard as he could. So I think in that moment as well, the pressure of the player comes into it a little bit as well. So I think, yeah, them two more than Haaland, by the way. With Haaland's penalties, I always feel like if a goalkeeper goes the right way, he's going to save it. Admittedly, quite often they don't. Yeah, I think those two, personally. One of Fernandes or Salah. You've got to factor in the pressure of the moment as well, I think. Liam says also one more. Would you do Munoz, Rice and Barry to O'Reilly, Dango and Thiago, excuse me, for free? Would mean benching João Pedro, Chow and Anderson. Currently 4K ranked, so want to have a go. Sounds to me, Liam, like you're answering your own question there. Again, I'd just reflect back on the O'Reilly. Is it worth it? Can't see into the future, unfortunately. But I think, Liam, all you're looking for from me there is to say, go ahead. I'm not going to tell you at 4K what to do, mate. NM, I think that's Nathan again, says last one. Rayan and VVD or Wilson and Konate. Would rather have Wilson but for 31, but VVD clearly the better asset at the back. Can't afford VVD and Wilson, unfortunately. It's a defensive transfer, probably over a short period. I personally have... I mean, you know what? It's VVD and Wilson, but I think I probably have a... There's no doubt in my mind I'd be buying Harry Wilson this week if I didn't own. So I do prefer that. Konate still gives you the coverage from the same team. So I think it's the Konate route. Okay, it's 2 o'clock. There's 3 more on screen I can see, so I'm going to cover them off quickly. Tom Sleeman, I was planning to do Mane to Thiago and fund it by downgrading Cunha. However, Cunha's minutes against Everton were better than I expected. Should I keep Cunha and downgrade Rice or Timber instead? Yeah, I wouldn't be against holding Cunha, actually. It's more useful. What a great differential potentially in game week 31, by the way. So probably, yeah. Magic MUFC says keep Timber until 31 or get Van Dijk now. Only 1 free transfer. Only 1 free transfer. I would leave it. I made the move with 5. 1 free transfer. I would leave it. I would say if you had 3 and were struggling about which Arsenal City you were going to get or Palace you were going to get rid of on the movement towards 31, then I'd probably do it. 1 or 2, I'd probably leave it, I think. And Aaron Curl says, hi James, would you take a -4, making 5 transfers now to get set for game week 31? Injuries now mean my plan has gone out the window and now need to make more transfers than expected. Do you need to? The question to that would be though, Aaron, do you need to make all 5 now? I suspect that might not be the case. So generally speaking, if you want to make 4 transfers now and commit, it's fine. If your 5th one is going to be something like we discussed, where it's like a fixture swing like João Pedro to Ekateke or something like that, okay, cool. I don't mind. Try and avoid the hit, I think, if you can. But if it's like, no, this final one is a clear fixture swing, I think there's upside over the 4 weeks. Be my guest. Sorry to those I've not got to. That's a lot of you, but I appreciate you very much submitting questions. If you want to drop me a tag on Twitter or Blue Sky at Planet FPL Pod, feel free to do so. I'll happily answer your questions later on. Let me just do a small promo before I finish. Tomorrow, fan view with Gemma and Harrison Eno. West Brom sacked their manager late last night. Good timing. I did watch their game against Charlton. They are in trouble towards the foot of the championship. We'll be discussing what's been going on at West Brom. The weekend of myself and David on Friday. If you'd like to support the show, it's www.patreon.com/planetfpl. I can tell you that Tottenham will be out for basic tier plus and above patrons at 3 o'clock today. And the midweek FPL dilemma that was only meant to be out for advanced tier patrons, I'm actually going to make available for all paying patrons around about 4:30 later today. So you'll have access to that from basic tier. The reason I've done that is I'm essentially calling it's a 42-minute basically stream talking through my options moving forward in future weeks. I think it's too important. And I think it will really help people from a strategy perspective to face the dilemmas of now versus later with good permutations and bad permutations, and why I'm considering bench boosting this week, which is a decision I haven't come to yet, but kind of deliberating the potential options around that. I'm basically titling it my biggest FPL decision of the season. I think it is, and I haven't decided which way I'm going to go yet. So that would be at about 4:30 p.m. That's would normally be only available to advanced tier patrons. That's going to be available for all patrons from basic tier and above around about 4:30 this afternoon. Other than that, just leaves me to say for audio listeners, a 5-star review goes a really long way. YouTubers, smash a like, hit the sub. The support is always appreciated. For the benefit of the audio listeners, cue music, please, Manchild.